Jimmy on a beat, boy. Jimmy on a beat, boy. Jimmy on a beat, boy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Gin College Podcast. I'm your host, as always, John J. II, here with Cody Almasy. Cody, talk to me, buddy. How we doing? I know spirits are high for Michigan fans everywhere. How we feeling today?
Yeah, man. Just elated. Coming off a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend with family, and the Detroit Lions didn't get the job done early, but I was telling everyone around me at all the dinners, hey, the Lions can lose by 50 today as the Wolverines take care of business on Saturday. That was kind of echoed throughout the families, and we got the job done. 3 straight against Ohio State. We'll talk about it a little later. I'm getting excited, but hell yeah, man. There's no better feeling than beating those guys in the scarlet and gray. So I'm in high spirits.
Listen, if they don't go all the way, I don't know. I mean, that's a different conversation we're going to have. But at this point, it's only right if they go all the way. Go all the way to the finish line. And you bring in Harbaugh back in this coming week against Iowa for the Big Ten championship this weekend. So they're in high spirits all over the place. They're feeling good. Michigan fans are feeling good. And, it's just like, why not? Why not? Just go all the way kind of thing at this point. So I'm pulling for them. I want the Wolverines to go all the way at this point in the season. And that's where we're at. That's where I'm at as a Michigan State fan. So we're pulling for the Big Ten. We want the Big Ten to succeed. Obviously not the scarlet and gray. And I told people this too, the day before Thanksgiving, there's Michigan fans coming at me. I was wearing my Michigan State hat, actually. And people are like, take the hat off, man. Hey, it's my alma mater. I'm going to rep my school no matter what, win or lose. Man. And
as you should.
Yeah, as I should. I have to. But I told him this too. I'm like, nobody hates Ohio State more than I do. Okay, so that brought some solace to the conversation, and that kept the hat on my head. But listen, it's at the point of the season. Go all the way, get it done, and prove everybody wrong. Prove everybody wrong. They already have, and they're becoming a staple. So I'm pulling for them. I want them to go all the way more than anybody else. So that's where we're at, and I'm happy for the Wolverines.
All right. Yeah, we'll talk more about the Wolverines in a little bit here. We'll break the game down for everybody. But you talked about wearing your Spartan hat out and about, and it's a bad year. Things have not gone according to plan, but the proud few like you out there is still wearing the colors, wearing the symbol, and it it's time for those who are a little ashamed, to pull them back out, because it's time to turn a page into a new era. And that's what you guys have done. You found your guy. We've been talking about it a couple shows beforehand. Who's it going to be? Who is MSU going to hire as their head coach? And they've landed on their man, Jonathan Smith. Coming from Oregon State, and he's looking to make a big splash here in East Lansing. Give me your first takeaways of this hiring, John.
Yeah, so Jonathan Smith, I think it's a great hire. Needed a guy that is going to rejuvenate and elevate this program into new heights. It's not a small task; it's more of a tall task for whoever was to take on the position. There was, I guess, sayings people were thinking Urban Meyer might have come out of retirement. I think those were more or less pipe dreams. Would it have been cool to see him come into East Lansing and to rejuvenate this program? Yeah, but I think this is a better option. Someone that's happy to be at the program and build the program up from the ground up and basically rebuild. You're left at ground zero in East Lansing right now with this football program. You're looking for answers, and I think Jonathan Smith is the step in the right direction to find those answers for Michigan State fans and for the Big Ten, for the conference. Going into 2024, the Big Ten turning into a super conference. A lot of teams out there in the Pac-12 are opponents that Jonathan Smith is familiar with. So that's a step in the right direction right there. You're with familiar opponents in a super conference of sorts, and it's only going to be crazier going into 24 in the years beyond that. So even with the 12-team format, all of it is kind of culminating into a future of college football, which we're excited for.
Yep. Like I said, Jonathan Smith coming in from Oregon State. The Spartans have signed him to a 7-year, $52.85 million contract. And it's pretty deserving. He came into Oregon State. I think their record in his first year, they were 2-10. So to really turn it around, I know his overall record, 34-35, but then he was 8-4 or better in the last 3 seasons, 10-3 last year with the bowl win. And if you think about that, to the first 3 years, that's a big turnaround, and that's what it's going to be in East Lansing. And I like the first couple things you hear headlines from his time there. It sounds like he got off the plane from Corvallis and pretty much cleaned out the cabinets, sent everybody packing, clean staff. And I think that's kind of the direction you have to go in this kind of a rebuild. So Spartans got their new head coach and looking to shake the dust off this year, kind of put it in the closet, bury it, don't speak about it, don't mention Mel Tucker and the things he did to this program, because it is a shame,
It is
from where they were a couple years ago. But I want the rivalry to be back between Michigan and Michigan State. And, I want them to steal one from the Scarlet and Gray every once in a while. And some of these Pac-12 teams that are going to come join the conference, like you were just alluding to. And this guy, he can do it. He knows how to win some games against some high-profile teams and is making a name for himself. So I'll be rooting for him, just not when they're playing the Maize and Blue.
Yeah, just to mention the coaching decisions, I think you had to clean house, get rid of the people that are, I don't want to say there's any coaches that were a cancer to the program, but cleaning house is not the worst option in this scenario. You're in emergency mode, code red mode. You have to make these decisions, rash decisions, if you call them that, and to rebuild the program. You're not faced with a small task; you're with a tall task, as I've just mentioned. So he knows that. He knows that he has a tall task ahead of him, and he has to deal with that by making some decisions, especially coaching wise. Bring your own guys in there, clean house. Get the guys in there that you're familiar with. Maybe bring some guys over from the West Coast and get the job done. He's not expected to have a great season this coming year. Even it's a rebuild season. It's tough that State has to experience another rebuild season after rebuild season, and we're dealing with this for it's looking like half a decade now. Got a couple good years in there with Mel, but you're going to have to do that. You have to, overcome these obstacles and find the finish line and get the job done, find those wins. He's proven himself as a winning coach. So I'm excited to see what he can do both in the offseason and coming into next season with a brand new landscape for college football. It's exciting.
You and me both. Jonathan Smith, the new head coach at Michigan State. And you're right. He's getting a little bit of a long leash, that 7-year deal, and there's going to be some patience involved. But one way he can kind of stave off the impatience from fans and, the people signing his checks is by getting a implant QB, he said, from the West Coast. One name is kind of a dark horse for Sparty to be where he lands, but DJ Uyunglele has recently announced his intent to either go to the draft or to enter the transfer portal. He's keeping his options a little bit open, but it is his head coach who went to Michigan State, so it is not unrealistic to consider East Lansing a landing spot for him. It has been said it's a dark horse place for him to show up, and that would really kickstart Jonathan Smith's plan there. At least give it, some early life. Maybe disguise how deep the rebuild is. If you could get somebody like that, get a QB underneath him, and really prepare, for the coming years and the uphill battle that is ahead.
Yeah, 100%. And I've had my fair share of shit talk sent DJ's way. But if it comes to this, then it comes to this. I think it'd be a great move, jumping in the transfer portal, head over to East Lansing, and at least finish yourself off in a good light with a coach, a head coach that you're familiar with. We've mentioned that we've seen this happen in the past with the USC move with Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams. That combo has proven itself to work. Yes, I've talked a lot of shit about those guys and that type of move. But in this case, if it does benefit the program in a rebuild type of situation, then I guess and I don't really have a whole lot of chips in the corner of Oregon State building their program because it seems like they're staying in the Pac-12. I think they'll find their way regardless of who takes over the helm over there. But in this situation, I think it's only right for that to be an option on the table for DJ to build himself up, to prepare himself for better draft stock going into the NFL draft whenever he decides to do that. I don't think he's personally ready for the NFL draft. Will he get drafted if he does declare? I think he will. But I think he takes one more year, and it'd be a good decision for him to do. He's healthy. He can jump into the Big Ten and find himself in a higher light. Put himself on a bigger stage, so to speak, going into the Big Ten as they're growing in numbers. So I think that'd be a good move for him. Yes, that could be a pipe dream as well, but I think it's definitely in the cards. It's not as much of a pipe dream as Urban Meyer had in East Lansing.
Yeah, and Michigan State, they do have the deep pockets, and their boosters to give him some NIL deal and really get him over here, because that's one thing I wanted to just talk about real quick is some of these QBs making NIL deals in college are doing better than some NFL starting quarterbacks who, went a little late in the rounds. Brock Purdy, his salary is very notably low for a starting NFL QB because Mr. Irrelevant. You don't got to pay the last guy taken in the draft too much. So same with Desmond Ridder, the quarterback from Cincinnati, who is now with the Atlanta Falcons. Their QBs, Bodacious, Jaden Daniels, some of these Heisman front runners that are pulling in big NIL deals that outweigh, what these NFL salaries are. So one more year, especially the season's not even over there. DJ's throwing your name out there just for these teams to kind of think about it, get a plan out, and see, do we want to pursue this guy and throw a bag his way. And I'm sure he has an agent hired, like all these guys do these days, and they'll make the decision that is best for DJ. But I definitely I agree with you. I think he stays one more year. Does he end up in East Lansing? Does he stay on the West Coast, Oregon? Florida State, also another landing spot that's been tossed out there. So we'll be monitoring where DJ wants to go and, where the next step in his career is going to take him, whether it's the NFL or one more year in college. Like, it would only be his 5th year. Like, it's not that much considering some of these guys applying for 7, 8, the 9th years of eligibility. So why not?
Yeah, he's got some decisions to make. He's not quite at the Stetson Bennett status, but I think he's got options. He's got options on his plate, and we'll have to see what he does.
Definitely. All right, let's get to my favorite scheduled topic for the night, and that is the events that took place on Saturday in Ann Arbor. The game, the most watched football game in some time, 19 million viewers, and that was the most watched game of the season. And the next closest game of the day wasn't even at 10 million. So just kind of shows you the magnitude of this rivalry, the viewers that it pulls, the eyes on this game, the talk it gets beforehand. And this was one I can promise you lived up to the hype, had everybody on the edge of their seat until the final seconds ticked off the clock. Michigan wins their 3rd straight battle against the Buckeyes, 30-24, all said and done. Rod Moore seals the game on a Kyle McCord interception with 25 seconds left as the Buckeyes are attempting a game-winning drive. And, before that play and the play beforehand, the Buckeyes had a lot of steam. So it was a thriller, to say the least. I was jumping up and down. I had Finn in my 8-month-old son in my hands, and I'm screaming, "Whoa!" And I might have startled him a little bit. I'm sorry, buddy, but it's 3 straight over the Buckeyes, and it just can't go understated what this means for the Michigan fan base, for those players, the guys on Team 144, what it meant to Sharon Moore, the acting head coach, and even to Jim Harbaugh, who was, who knows where he's probably not too far off location in front of a big screen watching. There you've seen the memes of him with a beer in his hand, pointing and laughing at the screen when Ryan Day's all stressed out over calls. It was just, it was a magical time, and the Wolverines, they got it done. And now we got to take care of business, something we haven't done the prior 2 years after winning the game in an even more decisive fashion. But we're feeling good, and this is a year where anybody could take it. Why not go do it?
Yeah, hats off to Sharon Moore. It just really shows the depth of that coaching staff that Jim Harbaugh has bred over there in Ann Arbor, and it's just impressive to see that he can count on those guys. He's posted up with a 6-pack at the Hyatt, and he is just feeling great about it. Not feeling great about not being on the sidelines, but he's feeling great knowing that he's got guys in there in his absence that can hold the rope and get the job done on the sidelines and on the field. Because that's a big damper. We were talking about that in the previous show last week about how that could be a factor. Jim Harbaugh not being on the sidelines, how can that be a factor? How can that be a detriment to this Michigan team? And it didn't prove to be one. And having him come back this weekend against Iowa in the Big Ten championship game is going to be huge for this Michigan team. It's going to be a comeback of sorts. for for Harbaugh coming back, for the players, they're going to feel good. Fan base is elated, and it's just all good things, all good vibes all around. Regardless, seems like a lot of people have forgot about the sign stealing scandal, Connor Stallions, and things of that nature. That has somewhat been swept under the rug. And I think that this win against Ohio State, especially with the absence of Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines and some other factors, that takes away the asterisk if they do go the distance and win the championship. So a lot of good vibes sent Michigan's way, and they're feeling good going into the final stretch of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And just to talk about Sharon Moore for a minute, coming in, taking the reins and winning 4 out of 4 games because he just won the 3. Well, Jim Harbaugh served this suspension, but he also co-head coached one of the first couple games that they played there in Jim Harbaugh's first suspension. And I think if you're a Michigan fan and you're worried, or this year, the years prior, about Jim Harbaugh's flirtation with the NFL, which you already, with the scandals going on, you've heard that those rumors start to eke out again that Jim Harbaugh could seek opportunity in the NFL. It's already been stated that NFL GMs would not really hold any of this against him, any of this sign stealing scandal. And teams like the Chicago Bears, who he played for, the LA Chargers, who have Justin Herbert, an absolute weapon, just being wasted under center. There's going to be a lot of turnover in the NFL, and the NCAA. It doesn't matter if Michigan, they get the roses, they win the national championship. The NCAA, whenever they wrap up this investigation, they're going to want some punishment dealt, and it's just pretty much all going to be on Jim Harbaugh. So he could, step away. I could see it happening. And if it does happen, Michigan might have their guy, and Sharon Moore is my point of this. The next great Michigan coach could be waiting in the wings already and be making his first debut performances before our eyes, and we're not really aware of it. And I think if you're a Michigan fan, you feel good about that because he won the game, and I know that it's not his players, but this is just going to add on to his legacy. And if he does have to be the guy to go recruit, he'll be call up Blake Corum, call up JJ McCarthy, ask them about me. And these guys, in a landscape of college football where the team and playing for your school is becoming something that means a little bit less, with the transfer portal always just that door is right there. If you face a little adversity, or you and your coach, you have a bad count, it's there for you, and that's something about this Michigan team that maybe 5-10 years we won't see teams that really play for each other the way that they do. They play for their coaches in a way that is just very authentic and creates a brand of football that it's hard to replicate. And Sharon Moore, I think he has that, and that's something you really can't coach or teach. It's just something you got. And so if things hit the fan with Jim Harbaugh and he's got to get out of here, I think that if you're a Michigan fan, it's okay. It was a good era, and it may be time for a new one with this scandal, but we'll have to wait and see on all that.
Yeah, I'll say this last little thing here. As a Jim Harbaugh fan, as an admirer of Jim Harbaugh and his style of coaching, I think it'd be a huge disservice for him not to fight like hell to stay with this Michigan team. But if for whatever reason he does part ways with the program, Michigan fans, alumni, everybody, they can sleep good at night knowing they're in good hands with good coaching, figures in and around the program. Sharon Moore is a perfect example of that, and they're in good hands. If Jim Harbaugh does decide to part ways for whatever reason, or if it's out of his hands, they're in good hands as a team, as a program, with good depth in the coaching core. So they're feeling good no matter what. But I think for Jim Harbaugh and his own sake, for his own legacy that he has, brought upon himself, and that is he's built both as a player and as a coach at Michigan, all the trials, tribulations, and everything else, scandals. He owes it to everybody, and most of all himself, to fight like hell to keep that position. in his possession. So that's my 2 cents, and we'll have to see how that unfolds going into 24.
Definitely, it's going to be something I'm very interested to see what happens. So whenever we get updates on that, we'll be sure to bring them to you. But the game was just one of the games that decided the conference championships that we will be viewing this weekend. We're going to go over the Power 5 ones, and there's a lot of CFP implications in these as well. There could be a lot of movement depending on what happens in these games, the results that occur Friday night and all of Saturday. And we'll start with the Big Ten, since we just wrapped up talking about Michigan and their win over Ohio State. They are rewarded with a battle against the Iowa Hawkeyes, the under monsters. And it is a very low over under 35.5, not as low as, Nebraska, Iowa, that locked in at, I think, 25.5 or 26.5 and still hit the under.
Smashed.
Unbelievable. But in Michigan coming out 22-point favorites. What are your first takeaways of the spread, the line, and then also the intangibles that we can't put into statistics?
Just get the job done, okay? Just get the job done. You came this far. Get the job done. Get the dub. Put your guys out there. Play some football. Don't leave any word unsaid. Don't leave any stone unturned. And just get the job done. Find the finish line. This is not a constellation game. This is a big game, okay? Regardless of how much it can be underplayed, looking at the line, 22 points, big deal. Get the job done. Find your place. Find your role. You've already done that. You've already proven yourself. You've already went through the ringer, and just find it. Find it. Get it done. Get the job done. Leave it up to the committee to where they want to put you in the top 4 spots. Leave it up to them with the seeding, and they have enough hard work to do. So if Michigan, by whatever means, if pigs fly and hell freezes over and Iowa wins, then you're just making their job even harder than it has to be. And they have a lot on their plate as well. And I don't want to say that they have, they're sitting there in silk robes making these decisions, and they're sitting like they're playing God when they're making these types of decisions. So we want to make it difficult for them, but not for this game. They have enough on their plate where you don't want to be in, that type of scenario as Michigan to be like, okay, we lost to Iowa. We're probably more than likely out. We're done, right? But we just don't want to. You don't want to be in that position. You don't want to be in that position. Get the job done. Get the win, and make it happen. That's all I can say.
Yeah, most definitely. If I think Michigan and Georgia, they kind of stand alone. They probably could take a loss, but Michigan, why would you? You're 22-point favorites. You got your head coach back. I like the over in this, and I don't know. The spread's kind of interesting. I like 19.5 a lot more than I like. 20.5 more than I like 22. I can see them winning by 21, but it should be a pretty an afterthought kind of game. Kind of the last 2 Big Ten championships for Michigan. Some interesting moments, but 2 years ago they beat Iowa 42-3. So the only thing I wish in this game is I wish we would have got our Cade McNamara rematch. We get to free play Cade McNamara after he transfers away, but alas, he sustained a season-ending injury last year, and we'll be watching from probably a hospital bed. I don't know, but that's about all there is to say about the Big Ten championship. Just take care of business, and don't make the committee's job any harder. All right, moving on to the Big 12 and its last format with Texas in the mix. They have made their final Big 12 championship game, and they're 15.5-point favorites. The Longhorns are over the Cowboys, over under 54.5. And if you're Texas, the same kind of scenario here. You got to take care of business. Because you're sitting at 12-1, and if any little bit of chaos happens, you have a good claim for one of those spots. We don't envy the committee like John was saying. I mean, I envy the silk robes that he's speaking on. Maybe get me a nice glass of Merlot and a Cuban cigar with my silk robe, and I'll feel a little bit better about making these tough decisions. But it is going to be tough, and if Texas takes care of business, which they should, it really makes it tougher. They're only lost coming to Oklahoma, and that's the Red River rivalry. That's anything can happen in those rivalry weeks, we know. But that was a great game. And then Oklahoma, the Sooners just got the better of them in that one. That's one of those rivalries that goes back and forth, back and forth. So 12-1 Texas, if they take care of business, they're right on the outside looking in. And I know the state of Texas is going to go wild if they somehow squeeze their way into the playoffs.
Yeah, play for position. Play for position. That's what you got to do. If you're Texas, play for position. Anyone in the top 10, we said this last week, it's kind of dwindling down. I think the 7th spot is somewhat the sweet spot. It's dropped from the top 10 to the top 7. So you're still playing for position. You still got opportunities in front of you. So play hard, win the game. And, the Red River rivalries are always tough. And, if it does come down to that, at least let the committee make that call where either you're in or you're out, barring what else happens. There's a lot that still could happen, a lot of movement potential, but get the job done. In this case, make their job harder. Make the committee's job hard. Make it difficult. Get the win and finish the job.
All right. Moving on to the SEC. Georgia, Alabama. The Dogs, the reigning national defending champs, are 5.5-point favorites. The over-under is at 54.5. And this one, maybe one of the most interesting matchups of the weekend. Almost a pre-playoff game here, because if Georgia wins, they're in. If they lose, if they drop one game, are they out? That's tough. It depends on how they lose, I guess, what else happens. And then Alabama, if they win, their only loss being to the Texas Longhorns. What was that, week 2? And Jaden Milroe, one of his first starts really as a quarterback. They're a new team. So if they win, they make a pretty good case as a one-loss team to get in. But do you fault Georgia for losing their first game in practically 3 years? So do 2 SEC teams is just at this one really throws a wrench in the works here. I'm curious to see what your takes away about this game's implications in particular.
So this is the game that could make or break the committee right here. They're playing for a reason. You never count out Nick Saban. Okay, even in a season where they're somewhat rebuilding. After that win against Auburn, anything is on the table. I think you have to drop Georgia to 4. If this happens, the unthinkable. And if not that, you got to kick them out. And that's just, it sounds unheard of. It sounds crazy that could happen in a conference championship game. But if you're the committee, say Texas wins and say Alabama wins, their decisions are very, they have to make a really tough decision, because do they keep Georgia in? Do they move Alabama in, or do they keep them out? Someone's got to be in, someone's got to be out. Georgia and Alabama, I don't see them both being in, because I don't see Alabama really moving up to 3 unless, Washington loses or something happens. But then you got to deal with Oregon too. So there's a lot of tough decisions here that could happen if upsets occur in conference championship week. So I don't even know. I can't even make a projection right now, but I feel like you almost have to bring Alabama in if they beat Georgia. You have to. But then what do you do with Georgia? You keep them in. What do you do? I think if Georgia loses, Ohio State is definitely out. No matter how you slice it. Texas, I think, is automatically out. But we can speculate here all night. It makes their job a lot easier if Georgia just gets the win and says, okay, all right, now we're good. Now we can see the finish line is a lot clearer for us as the committee making that top 4 figuring out the championships, figuring out the semis, and I don't know. An Alabama win will really throw a big wrench in things. That's all I'm going to say about that. And honestly, I hope it happens because I love seeing the committee scramble, and I love seeing them face controversy. I just love seeing it because they're gonna have to face it. They're gonna face the music no matter what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild year, and it's only fitting that it's the last year in the 4-team format because a lot of these games wouldn't mean as much, though Alabama, Georgia, no matter what happens here, unless Alabama gets throttled, pretty much probably both going to be in, unless those teams in the 9 through 12 spots are just, that good. But hey, this is the first time I'm really registering the spread here. I might hammer the Tide money line, baby. I love the Crimson Tide and where they're at. I like Nick Saban as the underdog, and Jaden Milroe has quietly become a very efficient passer, and he's becoming a better quarterback week in and week out. And that's just what happens at Alabama in Tuscaloosa. You get sharper as the season progresses. I mean, that's the place where they literally made a quarterback change in the national championship, and their QB2, Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa was ready to rip. So Nick Saban's got one up his sleeve, and I know Kirby Smart. He's shaking his boots a little bit, but he's got weapons too. Brock Bowers is looking like an animal again. If he hadn't missed time, he might have a claim, for the Heisman as a tight end, and that's pretty impressive. But we're pulling for the wrenches to be thrown over here. But we're on time constraints. We got to move on. We could talk about this game for a long time.
We could talk about all these games. We could take a whole podcast up just talk about these games.
Definitely. Honestly. So we have to get to the next one, and that is Louisville versus Florida State, the Cards versus the Noles. And Louisville, they just lost to Kentucky, lost a lot of steam last week. Big letdown loss, 38-31. Wildcats take the victory, but it's out of conference. So still Louisville headed to the ACC championship, and Florida State with Tate Rodemaker, 1.5 point favorites, not comfortable favorites by any means. 47.5 point over under, and it should be interesting. I really like FSU take care of business here, but again, if they don't, it opens up a lot of doors for some of these other teams.
Let's be honest. If Louisville wins, there's too many good teams. There's too many prominent Power 5 teams that are inching their way in, that are fighting, that are already in line for that midnight release. They're waiting in line. They're already waiting. That Louisville is out. That's not even the thought.
Yeah.
Florida State is on the fence. They're on the fence. With Rodemaker in there, they've already been pushed out of the top 4 just with the with the Jordan Travis injury. So that's a big detriment. That's a big hurdle to overcome. If Florida State wins, then the committee's got another tough decision to make. Louisville wins, I think it makes their decision easier because then they can kick them both out. They're both out, and none of them are really in. So it's not like you could really push them in or out because they're already out. But that would solidify their out position if Louisville does get the dub. It's a big, it's a big notch on their belt. It's a feather in their cap for Louisville if they win, finish off their season well, get a prominent bowl game, and just tip your cap to the season because it was a hell of a season for Louisville and the Cards. But I think if Louisville wins, they're both out. Period.
Yep. Because we already seen, like you said, how the committee feels about the Seminoles without Jordan Travis. They didn't lose, and we've seen them drop out of the top 4. They have found their way back in now that Ohio State has lost. But, we know just by prior actions that the committee is ready to send them packing. They have to respect them as an undefeated team, but you get that one loss, and they're not even going to look at you as a 12-1 team. So, 11-1 team. Oh, no, 12-1. I'm so sorry. Championship game. doing quick math. That's what happens. But regardless, you're really, really pulling for Tate Rodemaker if you're from the state of Florida and hoping you just get a chance, And if maybe you're a Michigan or Georgia fan, one of the 1 or 2 seeds projected, you're hoping that they make it too. So you maybe and conceivably, perceivably get an easier path to the national championship game. But I digress.
Well said, brother.
All right. And for the last Power 5 matchup, we'll get this one on Friday night, save some of the excitement, take care of it early, but it should be an absolute show nonetheless. The rematch of Washington and Oregon. The Ducks, 10-point favorites in this one, and the over-under pretty lofty, 65.5. It should be a great game. This is a rematch of October 14th when Washington defeated Oregon 36-33 in what was high quality entertainment football in Seattle, though. So, Michael Penix, the Huskies find a way to get it done in front of the home crowd, but the Oregon was knocking on that door. It came down to the last couple drives, and really, since then, Oregon has set off on a very high trajectory, playing absolutely elite football. Their quarterback, Bo Nix, front runner for the Heisman as we speak, and I think that's why they're favorited by 2 possessions. And on the flip side of that, Michael Penix Jr. kind of has struggled in some games against teams that they weren't expected to struggle against. Most recently, the Apple Cup against Washington State, getting it done. But it was closer than everybody expected, and that's been the case in a few other games for the Huskies down the stretch. So they are undefeated, but the media, everybody's kind of just waiting for this game here to kind of write them off. Are you one of those who's riding the Bo Go train and writing off Michael Penix and the Huskies so soon?
Yeah, I'm riding with Washington, and I think that they've had a lot of close games. Maybe games they should have lost, really. But I think Oregon, they need to get the job done. And honestly, this is a toss-up game. Does Washington show up to play, or do they let Oregon win? And if Oregon wins, that does make the committee's decision even harder. So it's interesting. It's interesting game, interesting spread, and it's going to be a hell of a game. I'm excited.
So this one is like a pre-playoff game, because the winner of this one is in, and the loser is out. But it's just not as much of a wrench as the Alabama to Georgia would be, because that's 1-8. So Alabama beating, it's just a lot more. Whereas this is set up by the committee. At Washington's 3 or 4, and then Oregon is 5. So pretty much swap you in, swap you out kind of thing. Swap you to the back, and a couple of teams shuffle in front of the winner. But pretty much a playoff spot. And I'm excited. Friday night, we'll get some of the drama taken care of right away, and we'll be good to go.